Want to improve your running form while decreasing your risk of injury? Follow along for my favorite tips and exercises.
Hey Prehab, welcome back. Dr. Craig Lindell here, and there's no doubt running is gaining popularity. Whether you are a beginner or a seasoned runner, form is very important to your health and longevity in the sport. Today, I'll show you how to improve your running form with running-specific exercises and training tips. I have to remind myself, why would someone want to improve their running form in the first place? And the way that I interpret that question is this. You want to run better, you want to run faster, you likely want to be able to run further, and of course, you want to make sure that your running form is good in the sense that what you're doing is not going to hurt or injure yourself. This makes sense to me, but why I find the topic of running form so intriguing is because of this question. How do you measure it? When you see an elite runner, you can just appreciate how good they look when they run compared to a beginner. Also, they usually don't look like they're in pain, they're running pretty fast, and they look really light on their feet. You tell yourself that you want to look like that. I want my running form to look like that person. As a physical therapist, you want to be as objective as possible. And the better that you can objectify something with minimal equipment needed or professional knowledge, you can empower your patients to keep track of what it is that they're doing. Ultimately, what I'm getting at is when people say they want to improve their running form, they ultimately want to improve their running economy. And this is something that the average runner can measure. Running economy is a measure of how much oxygen the body needs to run at a specific pace or intensity. A more common example of economy that we're familiar with is car economy. Comparing a vehicle that prioritizes economy with a smaller engine and gets like 50 miles to the gallon versus a race car that gets maybe 6 miles to the gallon. So as a runner, improving your running economy means that you can go faster, you can go further, and you can use less energy at the same time. Form has to be a factor here, right? You bet. Running economy is a physiologic measure of running performance. You can get really fancy in a lab to measure this, looking at VO2 max testing, lactate threshold testing, etc. But for the average runner, how easy or difficult it is to run at a given pace is pretty easy to track. And we can use this as a proxy for running economy. What is your rate of perceived exertion on a scale from 1 to 10? What is your running pace? And what is your heart rate? That is an easy way to just begin to get a baseline of your running economy. But now to the good stuff. How do you improve your running economy? By improving your running form. How does that work? How are they even related? Let's dive into that. Let's begin with running programming. If you want to improve your running form, you have to practice running. To sustainably practice running, I'd encourage you to follow the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your time running should be low to moderate intensity running, deemed zone 2 training. The best endurance athletes in the world more often than not follow this rule of thumb. And that's because a better term for zone 2 training is really fatigue resistance training. How long can you go at a sustainable pace working on your ability to resist fatigue? The type of fatigue that makes you want to stop, the type of fatigue that can alter your running form, and of course the fatigue that can alter your pace. Improving your ability to resist fatigue while running is going to be the best way to improve your running form, hands down. If you're not familiar with zone 2 training, 2 easy proxies to know, am I in zone 2 or not? Can you exclusively breathe through your nose while you're running? And then also, could you take a phone call while running and maintain a conversation with someone without feeling completely out of breath? Those are 2 of the easiest ways to know, am I doing zone 2 or not? Try it out if you haven't before. With that said, there are benefits to supplementing your zone 2 running with cross training, specifically resistance training and plyometric training. Recently, there was a study published that showed plyometric training can have a positive small effect size on running economy at slower running speeds. When you think about it, this makes sense. Plyometric exercises are going to have a similar cadence to running at slower speeds. And with plyometric exercises, we're focused on maximizing stored elastic energy. I will explain what plyometric exercises mean in a bit so that we're all on the same page. But what did they consider to be slower running speeds? In this study, they noted anything less than 7.46 miles per hour, which equates to just about an 8-minute mile pace. So if you're an average runner like me, there's a solid chance your running speed in zone 2 is slower than this, and you'd benefit from plyometric training as well. Before we dive into two of my favorite plyometric training exercises for runners, I want to make sure that you can maximize the benefits of plyometric training by ensuring you have the capacity to perform a proper hip lock. I got a comment on a recent video asking what is a hip lock, and ultimately it's being able to maintain terminal hip extension without losing form. The hip lock, keeping your hip in a rigid place, as well as being able to maintain a rigid torso, rigid knee, rigid foot. This is how you're able to take advantage of stored elastic energy in plyometric exercises. Ultimately, this is what makes elite runners look like they have awesome form. So here's my 3-step process to practicing and achieving a hip lock. All you need is a stick and ideally a small step. I have every single runner go through this process no matter what level they are. It could be a complete beginner to someone super advanced. I want to make sure that they can do all 3 of these steps really well, because that helps me to know that we have a solid foundation to build off of. So step 1 is literally just going to be marching in place. Get that stick all the way up overhead, and then from there, we're trying to be mindful of what is the positioning going to be. So I don't want you to be super arched. You're going to tuck the pelvis. We're going to get that hip lock, and you're going to pull your ribs down. You have to maintain that. And now from there, one leg stays super locked out straight. You're just going to drive the other one up and march. And you're going to repeat this 50 times on each leg. There should be no tilting. There should be no twisting. You shouldn't be losing your balance. The whole point of the stick is we're getting visual feedback as to, hey, are you able to maintain that rigidness throughout your entire body? Shouldn't be tired by the ends. Once someone masters that, we move on to step 2. And now we're taking the same exercise, marching in place with really good form, to now, can I march forward? Can I march backwards? Because ultimately, running, we are working in this straight line. And the more slow motion the movement can look, the better, because that helps me to know that, hey, there's really good single leg balance. There's really good single leg stability. When we see someone kind of lean, tilt, lose their balance, it's okay. There's an issue with the person being connected from their foot, knee, hip, torso, and having really good single leg balance is being able to get that hip lock, right? If I really lock out, I'm good, I'm very balanced. Now, the 3rd step, once someone masters that, we're gonna go to the step where, hey, can I have really good form, and can I go ahead and do a step up, very balanced, and now practicing unlocking that hip. So being able to go from a locked position to unlocked with really good form, and being able to get out of it, no issue. I like the step because now we're challenging the glutes, we're challenging the quad, and then stepping down, we're getting a good idea as to, hey, what does their calf strength look like? What does their ankle mobility look like? And if you also just want to see more demand, more control from the hip, well, let's go ahead and do a reverse lunge. Really unlocking that hip to locking that hip to, again, doing the step up, locking out, and then unlocking, coming down, coming back up, repeating this. I want to see someone super tall, super strong. This is how you build the fundamentals to what we want your form to look like when we're actually running. If you have any issues with this 3-step drill, or you currently have something like low back pain or any other lower extremity pain, I highly encourage you to check out any of our rehab programs on the Prehab app, followed by the Running Prehab program, because that's going to build you up to getting out of pain, followed by working on your running form with drills just like this. Now back to the plyometric exercises. Just to get on the same page, a plyometric exercise has to include the stretch shortening cycle to be deemed a true plyometric. What does that even mean? So a normal jump and land would not count as a plyometric, but continuous jumping, whereas this rebound component, think the rebound, the stretch shortening cycle, that's what counts as the plyometric, where we're tapping into the tendon to get stored elastic energy. Here are my two favorite introduction plyometric exercises for runners to ultimately improve their running form. Front foot support pogos. This is a great exercise to build off of the hip lock and work on creating and using elastic energy in a running-like fashion. So in the push-off phase of running, we need to create enough rigidness in our hip, knee, and ankle joint to propel our body forward and repeat this process over and over. So this is a great exercise to work on that technique. In addition, the runner is in control of how much weight their back leg is working against. So if you want to make this exercise easier, put more weight on the front leg on the step to offload your body. Versus if you want to make it harder, barely have any weight on that front leg to really make that back leg work. The next exercise is continuous forward bounding. Running is a single leg sport, but you're moving from one leg to the other. So the continuous forward bounding exercise is the closest thing that you can get to running without running. And you can tinker with how much diagonal you incorporate versus how much pause you want there to be, depending on what it is that you should work on. Make sure your form is really good if you're to do it slow, but ultimately the goal is to work towards continuous motion to truly get the plyometric benefits that we're looking for and that we've been talking about today. Last but not least, let's not forget about the other 20% of the time in the 80-20 rule, which more often than not, most runners overdo. And that's threshold and VO2 max training. This is what's flashy, this is what's fun, running fast, sprinting, hill repeats, track workouts, etc. But you have to be fit to run. I've already mentioned this. You can't run to get fit. You should especially not run fast to get fit. This is actually the fastest way to get hurt. I don't want to discourage anyone from running, right? I don't want to say that, hey, you have to do all these exercises first before you go for a run, but just know that it is so easy to overdo running. And this is where most people that are not familiar with running just flat out overdo it and get hurt. But because you're watching this video, you're already doing something right and working these exercises, definitely the form things, and you should be just fine. With that said, it is important to practice threshold running and VO2 focused workouts when your body's ready for it, as this is the best way to improve your form with running fast. The mechanics of sprinting and running fast are definitely different than jogging or running slowly. We tend to have a more aggressive forward lean, especially when accelerating. We're gonna have a higher cadence, a quicker turnover, but even more important than before, maintaining rigidity, what we deem as good form, is crucial here to get the most out of the energy that you are expending in efforts to propel your body forward. Again, elite runners don't look sloppy. They're very rigid. They're very stiff. Referring back to the same article I mentioned earlier, strength training at high loads, greater than 80% of your 1 rep max, will have substantial benefits to improving your running economy at high speeds. Even better, combining this training with plyometric training is going to give you the best bang for your buck. To keep it simple, anything faster than an 8-mile pace is going to benefit from this type of approach. Weight bearing, compound movements performs anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week with 2 working sets, not just warm up, but working sets of 5 to 8 reps is going to be the sweet spot in my opinion. You can pick a few movements that you like, that you have access to loading heavy and slot it in with your running schedule. For exercise ideas that I have gone into extensive detail with, check out either of these videos. That's all for today, Prehab. Let's recap. Improving your running form ultimately means that you are trying to improve your running economy. Running economy is something that we can easily measure and monitor, and you can do it on your own. Running economy can improve not just by running, but also doing specific cross training that includes plyometric and high intensity strength training exercises. Remember, you have to be fit to run. You should not run to get fit. If you're looking to get back into running or you want to stay running and decrease your risk of injury, be sure to check out the Prehab app for dozens of programs and workouts that will benefit you as a runner.